This is The Antidote with Dave Hawkins, where Christian music doesn't suck.
Take his hand on Saint Denis, and his words pause as he turns to me. The last light of evening, on du rocher, we fell asleep till summer faded from its green and left us shivering in the fall. Montreal seems much too far from Outremont to the northeast side of Jaws, the longest 3 blocks west of Patrick. In early morn, I call his phone, hear his shivers rattling my tiny bones. Voices float on the dust and static.
We're keeping the music a lot closer to home on The Antidote tonight as we get into the music of a Canadian artist, singer-songwriter Lucas Huang, who gave a tribute to his newly adopted home of Montreal with the song De Rocher. I was really taken by the music of Lucas when I happened to hear his set during a recent show here in Peterborough. He and I were able to spend a few minutes talking after his set, and of course I decided I got to put this guy on the spot and ask for a phone interview with him. It's an interesting conversation where Lucas talks about searching for his roots in Christianity, what influences his songwriting, and why he's just as capable as Johnny Depp to take over the role of the Invisible Man. Enjoy our talk and the music. Singer-songwriter Lucas Huang of Montreal is here with us tonight. Thanks for meeting with the Antidote, Lucas.
Thanks very much, Dave. I'm very happy to be speaking with you.
I guess you recently moved because you used to be based in Kingston, Ontario, then you moved to Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
So have you found the music scene different there for you?
Yeah, it's bigger. That's nice, and that's also in some ways a little more difficult to... It's taken a bit more effort to get noticed and start getting onto shows and that kind of thing. But yeah, it's pretty amazing, Montreal. It's a very happening city.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because, with most of the artists I meet, they're all over the net. But when I search for more info about your music online, you're like the invisible man. Almost nothing came up. How does a musician exist without a big online presence?
For me, that's actually just a function of how I operate. I mean, I just put my music online, but I don't have a label or a manager or a publicist or anything. Yeah, I like being able to hide a little bit, keep my personal life separate from what I'm putting on the internet. And also, as someone who doesn't have really any career ambitions as a musician, I'm happy to kind of take a backseat a little bit and just let the music exist on its own, but not have to push it that much,
Well, then if music isn't your lifelong dream, what is?
I don't think I have one. I mean, I think maybe music is a lifelong dream, but maybe not necessarily, how I want to make my livelihood. I do a lot of things in terms of my career outside of music. I think music is a lifelong dream. It's just that I have other parts of my life that I use to put food on the table, and then it gives me the freedom to do what I want with my music and not have to appease a large audience or appease a label or anything.
So in other words, the job pays for the passion.
Sure, yeah, and I think that's how it is for pretty much everybody.
Well, songwriters are really storytellers, but Lucas, I find you taking that to another level. Your music is so profoundly intimate. Do you think that comes across because of your soft vocal style, or is it the lyrics itself?
Sure. I think the lyrics themselves, they have a large part to do with that. But also, I think having grown up, singing in choirs and that kind of thing, I learned proper enunciation in singing. And also, I think this is something that a lot of singers that I like a lot do, which is that you can really hear the lyrics come across. I'm most comfortable in a lyric writing mode where there is a narrative arc, where it's not just speaking in the abstract. I like to be able to have more of a narrative direction when I write.
Fell asleep beside the ghost of my old words, and I keep waking up to noises I've misunderstood. We left our bodies in the cold of January 3. I said I'd drive north and disappear. Would you look for me? Love, where did you go?
you record under two different names. Some of the music goes under Old Haunt, which is more atmospheric. In other songs you produce as Lucas Huang, which is stripped down, just your voice and a guitar. Do you think that one style gives a greater impact over the other?
Yeah, I prefer the band sound with the more electronic elements and the more ambient effects and that kind of thing. Actually, the dual name thing is a recent thing, because before everything was Old Haunt. On the most recent mini tour that I did, where we met actually, that was the first time that I was playing under my own name as opposed to Old Haunt. And just to sort of reflect that, I retroactively changed some of the artist names on a couple of my releases online. The short answer is that Old Haunt was a band when I lived in Kingston, and we tried to keep recording together long distance, and we still do. We still collaborate quite a bit, but I've been away for about 3 years now, and I've been performing and writing and recording on my own since then. So I thought it was sort of more of an honest reflection of where the music is at right now.
The travel time's just too far between each of you?
That's part of it. More for the live performance, absolutely. Trying to get everyone free the same weekends to try to practice and then play shows together. That was the prohibitive factor for sure. In terms of recording, we can send stuff back and forth online, and there's no real challenge there. It's just it's harder to stay disciplined as a band when you're not meeting in person. It's easier for things to sort of slow down or fall by the wayside when you have this sort of asynchronous development where you're sending things back and forth. And then just life got busier for all of us, really.
Each time I hear this intro for the song Scatter, all I can think of is having this enormous can of Coke put in front of me. See what you think.
Settle in black and white. You scatter through me, and you scatter through scatter through me.
time saying no. 5. I highlight, color, or bleach my hair. I would prefer to help someone one-on-one rather than a group. Truth be told, I like animals or plants much better than I like people.
On your 2013 release, Empty Heart, you have a song that brings to mind something that Sufjan Stevens would do called Sky Burial. It includes the lyrics, "Why not then be buried in the sky? Living is just another word for dying." That thought seems so depressive. What was your mindset when you were writing that song?
Sure. Sky Brilliant and Lost Legs were written around the time that a friend of mine passed away, and he was a Buddhist. So I was being introduced to a lot of Buddhist ideas and some of the sort of rites that happen around, or that happened at least in his practice of Buddhism around the time of his death. And that got me reading into different traditions. So I was thinking a lot about the concept of detachment and of sort of not having an attachment to this world. And so that's why this line, "living is just another word for dying," is not meant to be depressing. I wanted it to be just a simple observation that death is inevitable, and that fact doesn't have to depress us. It can actually be kind of freeing. Knowing that what happens in our lives, ultimately, a lot of things we don't have much control over, first off, and then the things that we do have control over, most of them aren't going to have much of a lasting impact in terms of the scheme of the universe, you know? And so then that can be very freeing, because then you can say, all right, I'm going to focus on the things that produce happiness or that alleviate suffering for other people. So Sky Burial is very interesting. It's a practice that happens, there's a few places in the world and a few cultural and religious traditions where it happens, but essentially, instead of burying someone who's died in the ground, we'll leave them, on the mountain or something, and the animals and the elements will consume them. The body, once the person has left, the body has no sacredness to it. It's just matter. And we came from that void. We emerged from inanimate material, and then became living at some point, just for a very brief period, and then we returned to being just matter, inanimate material again. And so that was the idea behind that song, was sort of letting go of the self and letting go of earthly attachments.
But that's very difficult for somebody with a westernized mindset. I mean, even with me taking it from a Christian perspective, where, we do believe the soul carries on to heaven. But even with Christians, I think sometimes deep down inside, they struggle with that whole concept.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's a challenge. It really is a challenge. And I am someone who grew up in Christian tradition as well. And I think sometimes just brushing up against these other worldviews and other religious traditions can be kind of jarring, and encountering the different ways that they understand things that I might have held on to more dearly or held as more sacred.
Are you just a dream with bones and arrows to the sky? Are you a cloud that fades as the day passes by? Like writing on a page, or water on the leaves. Gain or lose no meaning as your body disappears. Don't break your hands in endless prayer. Place your wounds on your mistakes. We all bleed to the edge of the page. Then tear and float along the wind and find a life outside our skin. Why not then be buried in the sky? Living's just another word for dying.
In regards to your music, I think if someone was to ask me what kind of an impression I get from the music of Lucas Huang, it's that it emotes a sense of loss, especially with the song Ghost Town.
Yeah, I would say Empty Heart as a whole really centers around the theme of loss. Not in any deliberate way. It wasn't sort of deliberately constructed that way, but as I was assembling the songs for them, I realized there is an element of loss in all of those songs. And some of them are about family members or friends who have passed away. Some of them are about relationships that ended. Ghost Town itself, I would say, is the one that is the most fictional, maybe, on that album. In the sense it's not something that happened to me, but it was, I can't remember even where I was going, but I was on a road trip somewhere, and we drove through some town in Ontario that wasn't a town anymore, and there was just all these buildings that were boarded up, and no one lived there anymore. And it was really striking that there were all of these artifacts of the life that used to be there but aren't anymore. And so I got reading into how that happens, and there's a recurring story, predominantly in the States, but it happens in Canada as well, and to some extent around the world, where there will be this tiny town, and then they find that there's something of value, usually in the ground, right? Usually it's gold or it's oil or some kind of precious mineral. And then the population quadruples in a matter of years. And then the industry moves in, and then they sort of suck all of the value, all of the capital out of the ground, and then they leave. And then there's nothing left. And even the people who were there before can't stay anymore, because that process, that industrialization, ended up taking away what they had before. I was just trying to imagine how sad that would be, and I sort of imagined, because I had a very nice idyllic childhood. I was trying to imagine what it would be like to go back to where I grew up, to see it flattened and the ground poisoned, and it's not safe to enter anymore. I was sort of imagining how devastating that would be.
I grew up as an old ravine. We'd spend our afternoons there wading through the shallow streams. But kids don't play there anymore. The water's all got poison when they found some precious ore. Past the trees are the empty fields. The farmers left them years ago, and the seasons brought no yield. There's not much here but dust and stone. The empty barns ring hollow, all the doors are rusted closed. Oh. Past the fields are the empty trains that used to carry workers every night and every day. And One day all the work ran out, so they packed up what they could and went to look in other towns. And past the tracks are the empty homes, barely standing up still, so many years been left alone. They say they're haunted anyway, 'cause the dead folks there won't leave if they've got nowhere else to stay. So I'll kneel down in that old ravine, and I'll whisper prayers into the ground until our world is healed. I'll find my body after dark, new grass is growing, laid the roots down in my empty heart.
Another song that I've really come to enjoy is Tower Song from your EP Emptiness. And it uses a tall tower as a metaphor for pride and the disconnect that creates. So does Lucas Huang have a tall tower?
Yeah, I think, okay, so I have to say that isn't my song. That song was written by Townsend Zent. That's a cover that's on that little EP. Yeah, I think I do have a tower. I think everyone does. I think the tower sort of represents the barriers that people put up to avoid really confronting each other. There's a lot of our identities that we construct very deliberately. I think a lot of times, for a lot of people, that comes from a place of insecurity, where we're afraid that if people really knew what I was like, then they wouldn't be friends with me, or they wouldn't want to be in a relationship with me.
They're finding out that you're really an evil person deep down inside?
Yeah. I think that's a fear that a lot of people have. I mean, evil is a strong word, but at the very least,
Oh, I was only being facetious.
Yeah. No, but I think the sentiment stands. I think a lot of people feel like they have to present a good side of themselves because they're afraid if they show the true selves, then they won't be left with any friends. Hi, this is Lucas Huang, and you are tuned into The Antidote with Dave Hawkins.
So close and yet so far away, and all the things that I hope to say have to go unsaid today, perhaps until tomorrow. Your fears have built a wall between our lives and all that loving means. We'll have to go unfelt, it seems, and that leaves only sorrow. You built your tower strong and tall, can't you see? It's got to fall someday. eyes and speak to me of faith and love and destiny, as distant as eternity, from truth and understanding. A wind blows cold outside your door. It whispers words I've tried before, but you don't hear me anymore. Your pride's just too demanding. You built your tower strong and tall. Can't you see it's got to fall someday? Coming soon, it's plain. A warm bed, it's just not worth the pain. And I will go and you'll remain with the bitterness we've tasted. A mother's breast, a newborn child, a poet's tear, a drunken smile. And I can't help thinking all the while their meaning won't be wasted. You built your tower strong and tall. Can't you see it's got to fall someday?
On your latest album, Refuge, you really switch up style because you've done covers of older songs and given them a new sound. Why did you feel that it was important to retell these old spirituals and hymns?
Sure. I'm not sure the songs themselves needed me. I think I need them more than they need me, you know. I think the songs stand on themselves quite well, but I felt like the sentiment expressed by them was really something that I wanted to tackle. Part of this was also that I hadn't written any new songs of my own that I was happy with in a long time, and I thought this would be just a good exercise in arrangement. It's just good to sort of stay on the saddle, right? To keep on recording and keep on arranging things, and to not let inertia set in. And then the other thing is that Empty Heart, as you were saying before, so much of it centers around loss, and a big part of that, as I alluded to when we were talking about Skyborough, a lot of that loss was loss of faith and feeling disconnected from the beliefs I'd grown up with and exploring other ideas. So then Refuge was this very deliberate attempt to reconnect with a lot of the ideas and a lot of the beliefs and worldviews that were very formative, still are very formative for me.
So it sounds effectively like it was a two-pronged attack there. You're really doing it from an emotional, spiritual level and also doing it as like a technical exercise.
Sure, yeah. Multifaceted exercise for sure.
One of the songs that's included on that, Get Back Satan, is a classic style of African-American gospel music. But where did you ever find that tune?
My husband is very interested in old gospel and blues recordings. And I think that song, I'm fairly certain actually, it's one of the Mississippi Records compilations. And those are just gold mines for especially that style that you're describing, the, black gospel, very soulful and very heavy lyrically often. And also what drew me to that song in particular is it ties its religious message into something that was very urgent and very relevant at the time. So, it was written and performed during the 60s, during the civil rights era in the States. And it speaks to that very powerfully. And I really like that because a lot of times religious music speaks very much in the abstract. And I mean, the song that comes after that on the EP, "Come Ye Sinners," is a perfect example. It's a sort of a classic hymn that's very theological, and it's wonderful and it's beautifully written as well. But it doesn't have that urgency, you know. It doesn't have that feeling that really grips you.
Well, of course, radical time frame difference too, almost 200 years difference.
Of course, yeah.
Keep on smiling home. So step aside. We got to move. Get back, Satan. It's your time to lose. I wanna go where there will be peace, where all will finally be free. We keep on waving our banner. We're taking our breath too deep. We marching for that day when all will finally be free. So step aside. We got to move. Get back, Satan. It's your time to lose. I wanna go where there will be peace, where all will finally be free. Step aside. Got to move. Get back, Satan. It's your time to lose. I wanna go where there will be peace, where all will finally be free.
can't get enough of that song. Get Back Satan. Coming up, Lucas and I speak more about spirituals and hymns. Okay, but to speak about that hymn, that impacted you enough to want to do your own cover of it.
Yeah, I think it has a very compelling melody, for one, and that's something, for me anyway, that's sort of my falling in love moment with any song. Starts with the musical element, and then later I'll dig into the lyrics and see if they speak to me. The other thing is, it's not quite as heavy as Get Back Satan, but it still has that element to it of yearning, of things being wrong, and Jesus has the power to make it right. There's something about that speaks to me. It's very powerful for me across both of those songs, and I think that carries through as well to City of Refuge, the last song of that EP.
Yeah, because I wanted to bring up about that. That's a cover of a song from Blind Willie Johnson, who's just incredible. And it wasn't a typical song from him, one like John the Revelator.
Sure.
Yeah, pulling up City of Refuge, but then pairing it up with Let It Rain and then adding this sort of thrice, oh brother type of sound was just amazing.
Oh, thank you. I liked the pairing of Let It Rain and City of Refuge. Just thematically, they seem to link, right? Let it rain, rain don't fall on me, because I'm going to run to the City of Refuge, right? I have refuge. The rain doesn't bother me. Stylistically, again, it goes back to that just dark heaviness of this style of Deep South gospel. I mean, I listen to a lot of this kind of music, heavy music and doom metal and sludge and drone and all that kind of stuff. And
that's pretty different from what you do.
Yeah, and I'm always looking for ways to incorporate it, because it is a big part of my palette of influences. And I feel like there's a lot of unexplored territory in that intersection of heavy, dark gospel with heavy, dark instrumentation.
Oh, Lady Rain, oh, Lady Rain, yeah, Lady Rain, rain don't fall on me. Oh, Lady Rain, yeah, Lady Rain, oh, Lady Rain, rain don't fall on me. Telling you my sin, wanna join the bed. You have to be converted, son. Give that preacher your hand. I'm gonna run, I'm gonna run to the City of Refuge. I'm gonna run, I'm gonna run to the City of Refuge. The Holy Ghost is a mystery. Paul preached it in the land. Trying to stay strong in Damascus road. Hold on to Jesus' hand. I'm gonna run, I'm gonna run, 12th chapter of Revelation, around the 13th verse, with the dragon hurled down by the preacher bound, and he saw his own death in hell. I'm gonna run, I'm gonna run, I'm gonna run to the city of refuge. I'm gonna run, I'm gonna run to the city of refuge. I'm gonna run, I'm gonna run to the city of refuge. I'm gonna run, I'm gonna run to the city of refuge. I'm gonna run, I'm gonna run to the city of refuge.
I really go for Lucas Huang's cover of City of Refuge. I mean, it's a radical change from the rough and gritty original recording. So you gotta do yourself a favor and spend a few minutes to hunt down the original version by Blind Willie Johnston, and you'll hear how radically different those two versions are. Well, listen, thanks for tuning in The Antidote, and if you want to keep in touch, look us up on Twitter, Facebook, iTunes, and YouTube, and of course our website, theantidoteradio.com. Let's move on to what's happening next week. And I'm sure that regular listeners to The Antidote know that I like to air a really wide range of music, and that's going to happen again. Back in 2008, Archangel released a single album called Dragon Slayer. This is a lo-fi masterpiece, and it's unusual in the extreme. We're going to meet with the man who recorded it, Ben Hergert, to ask how he feels about his creation and whether it's odd or is it unique. Be sure to listen in. It's going to be a really interesting show. We're going to bring back Lucas now with what he feels is his best song, and we'll see you again next week. Lucas, I'm going to let you choose the closing song for the night. What is your personal favorite? And tell us the reason why.
Sure. I would say my favorite song that is on the record is Lost Legs, which is the fourth song on Empty Heart. On the LP itself, it closes out the A-side. Why do I like it? For a few reasons. On the musical side of things, on the technical side of things, I think it really came together in a way that was very satisfying. I feel like that song is the closest to what I was really hoping to capture with this record. And I think we do capture these kinds of sounds throughout the course of the record, but it's this one song that on its own manages to encapsulate everything that we were really going for when we made this record. And so there's the acoustic and songwriting element. The second verse, there's some free form, the interplay between the percussion and my bandmate Matt Rogalski's guitar playing is really nice. And then there's this big build-up towards the end where Chris Trimmer, my other bandmate, he came up with this incredible sound that was actually algorithmically generated. There's a thing that kind of sounds like a metallic, sort of a machine kind of sound mixed with a big saxophone maybe or something. Anyway, it's a random tone generator that he made on a synthesizer, and it's incredible. And just sort of the way all the elements came together was really satisfying because it started with me recording just the guitar and voice in Matt's living room, and then over the course of several months, just gradually adding things on top of it until it was something completely different than what I expected. So that's the one side of it. And then the other side is that I think similarly, it lyrically also really captures the intent of this album. There's hints at religious or spiritual searching. There's some talk of the loss that was hinted at. You might notice, the first two lines are the same as in Sky Burial, so it's like addressing the same question in a different way.
Hey, before I forget, I mentioned about how you're almost invisible online. Give us the link to find your music.
Sure. The link is oldhaunt.ca, and that will actually just redirect you to oldhaunt.bandcamp.com. Same thing. And that has all of our recorded music so far. We are not on Facebook or on Twitter.
The Antidote has been here with Lucas Huang. It's been great to have you. Thanks so much for meeting with us, Lucas.
Thank you very much for the invite, Dave. I really appreciate it.
Just a dream with bones and arrows to the sky. Are you just a cloud in the dark who waits, asking why, Lord, why? inside of your chest. Maybe nothing can break if nothing's at rest, and it bends to the stillness of the world all around. Maybe we are not lost, and we make no sound.